Hey guys, we are going to make this adorable standing Dollar Tree gnome out of 2 Dollar Tree wall plaques, a couple of their ornaments, and some trim pieces. Most of them I got from Dollar Tree as well. So let's get started. For his stomach, I used this round. It was an ornament wall plaque, and I thought it made the cutest little belly. So what you see me doing right now is just basically taking a piece of ribbon, gluing it to it, adding some additional ribbon. This is going to be like his belt area. You'll see in just a little bit, but really just gluing it over the shiny white because I wanted there to be a breakup between glossy and the matte, which kind of looks like a finished product. So this is his belt area. I found these little tassel trim pieces as well at Dollar Tree. They had green, red, and white. I bought one of each, but I'm just using the green and red on him. And then I glued those on. Then I'm going to take the red ones and I'm going to kind of shift them to the side, and that way the red balls fall between the green balls. So I didn't layer them directly on top of each other. I did put them on top of each other, but I shifted them so it goes green, red, green, red, green, red. Glued that into place right on top of the green trim piece. Cut it, flipped it over, and glued it also. And that's pretty much it for the belt, except for I decided on those snowflakes I wanted to add some jingle bells. So I wired some jingle bells onto some pipe cleaners, threaded them through on top of each snowflake, twisted them till they were tight, and then cut off the excess. And that's it for his belly. Now we'll move on to the head. The head was another piece by itself, and I didn't want the shiny cap. So what I did is I made a pattern out of some fabric. I just took a fabric I liked, laid it underneath it, cut it an inch wider than his existing head form. That way I could fold it over and glue it to the back side. Now I'm adding some pinch pleats. I thought it would be really cute if he had kind of a crinkled look down by his nose, you know, like a cute little gnome. So what I'm doing is just pinching the fabric, making little pleats, carrying it over to the other side, and then gluing those pleats in place. It really is as simple as that. Now we're going to hot glue the rest of the fabric by folding it over. Make sure you're covering all of the sparkly pieces and just work your way down each side, gluing that fabric to the back plastic piece. So just hot glue it and stick it down. Easy peasy. Really, we're just using this great form structure and adding our fabric on top of it is what you're doing. So not hard at all. Get creative. Figure out the kind of fabric you like and add it to your gnome. And that's his hat, guys. How cute is that? I just loved it. I'm going to add a piece where his white fur is, but first let's paint his nose. I got some acrylic paint that I had bought at Hobby Lobby. It's Anita's acrylic. It's a skin tone because gnomes have kind of a skin tone nose. And then what I did is I started painting it on. The ball is shiny. And so you'll see in a few minutes as I was adding layers that it didn't want to really stick well. It was acting like it was trying to pull it back off. So I was like, that's not going to work. So I dry it and then I'm like, well, what can I do? So I touched up a little bit. I didn't want there to be any spots. And then I got some decoupage glue. I thought if I applied something that was a little bit tacky, and decoupage glue is tacky, that it would give a base where the paint would stick to and want to adhere to. And that worked, guys. So I applied some decoupage glue. I let that dry. In between layers, I always dried. I probably did maybe 5 or 6 layers total of this acrylic paint to get a really nice coverage, and then sealed it in place with the decoupage glue on top so it wouldn't scratch off. And it did a great job. He's just looking so cute. Okay, so now we're going to add a trim piece where his white fluffy is around his nose. I didn't want that to be white. It matched too much with his beard. So I just took a piece of ribbon that I had. It actually was a wired piece of ribbon. I folded it over on top of itself and kind of just made a little 1-inch piece of fabric. You could use material if you wanted to. I'm just hot gluing it around, making sure I'm securing it nicely around his nose, and then flipping it over the back side and gluing it just like we did the other pieces. But I like the contrast that it gives to it. Then I added the fuzz above it. This actually is crochet yarn, and it's nice and fluffy, and it looks like fur. And so I just got a piece of that, glued it on top of the ribbon, and then glued it to the back as well. Now we're going to add his little puff ball to the top of his head. So I just took this cute little puff ball. I added a piece of ribbon on the back because I wanted to adhere good because of the fuzziness of the ball. I didn't want it to pull out. And then I just hot glue it on, squish it down, make sure it's on there really good, and he's ready to be put together. So these two things that you see right here are the gloves that I bought. They were ornaments at Dollar Tree. I bought 2 of them. They were shiny and sparkly. They reminded me of a set, and they kind of looked like they went together. And so I was thinking, oh, those would be great to add for my gnome hands. So I didn't like the gold that it had because my gnome didn't have any gold on it. He had silver. So I was just taking, again, another roll of my Dollar Tree trim that I found in green sequin. And I'm just hot gluing around that gold trim, covering up the gold trim so it looks green. That's pretty much it. And I repeated it, of course, on both hands. Then I took some fleece fabric that I had that was candy cane striped, and I'm going to make his little breeches out of these. Basically, I just cut little rectangles, hot glued the seams together instead of sewing them, turned them inside out so that they're back to normal. Did the same thing for his sleeves, for his arms, and put a little hole in the glove so that I could insert a dowel. Hot glued that dowel in, put his sleeve on top of the little cuff of the mitten, and then hot glued the fleece down to the glove so it would stay and not go anywhere. And now we're going to add some fuzz or little furry pieces again. And this is the same stuff I applied to his hat. It is that yarn that looks like fuzz and fur, and I basically am just hot gluing it around the cuff, covering up where I glued it on so it looks finished. And I thought I would add some sparkly tinsel in silver. This actually was a trim piece, and I thought it would just add another dimension, and I did that to both gloves. Now let's move on to these cute, adorable little shoes and make him some feet. The shoes were a 2-piece set of ornaments. So it was 2 of them on one set, so both of them cost $1. I thought they would be great for the little gnome's feet. They are just too adorable. So what I'm doing right now is I wadded up some aluminum foil. First I put some beans in the bottom for weight, wadded up some aluminum foil, pushed it on top of those beans, and then hot glued it in place with the dowel in the middle. That way we could have some weight in those shoes. I've set them to the side because I want the glue to dry because I put a lot of hot glue in it. So while we're waiting, Les put his arms on. Basically just positioned them in place where I thought the hands would need to be glued to for stability. I went ahead and put some hot glue down, made sure it was even on both sides, glued those gloves straight to his belt piece. Then I went up top, put his head on, looked from the back, hot glued the fabric down and the dowel rod in the inside of the fabric so that the structure would hold into place nice and firmly. And did the same thing, of course, on this side. As you can see, I kind of did little tucks and pinches so that it kind of looked like his sleeve was kind of coming into his beard, so it didn't look, real flat. It looked like a little sleeve would look. And then I made sure that they were glued down really nice to that plastic piece. Flipped it back over, looked at it. I kind of left his head cocked just a little bit sideways for an expression. I thought it was really cute. And then what I'm doing right now is you can see that the ball area or the stomach area was trying to pull away from the head when I stood it upright. So what I was doing is attaching a piece of fabric through the little loops at the top and going to anchor that with some hot glue to his head. So I joined those two pieces together basically. And then I put those down, and that's going to give it stability so that it looks like it's one big piece. And then we're going to move back to the feet. Cute little shoes. He's got little stomping feet. He's so cute. Oh my goodness. I love the shoes. Can you tell? I got this little round piece of balsa wood also at Dollar Tree. I thought it would make a great stand for stability. Even though I weighted the boots down, I was afraid he might tip over, especially if I put him outside. So I am going to hot glue these to the stand. I put good coat of hot glue on it because I don't want them to come off. And I held it down, made sure it was gluing. And then the second one I thought, well, maybe I'll put some E6000 on it and some hot glue. That's what I did to it. I will tell you that the hot glue held just fine without the E6000. I really did not even need to do that. I could have just put a really good coat of hot glue and it would have done just fine. Okay, so now we're going to build onto the structure of the back. This is just plastic, guys, and it's not very strong plastic. So how do you get plastic not to break and bend, especially if it's outside in the wind? So I took these painter sticks, stir sticks that you can get at Walmart. I think I got a 4 or 6 pack for like 98 cents or something like that at Walmart. And I'm just sticking it up onto the ball frame, marking where I would need to cut, cutting it with my hand miter cutter. And then I am going to be putting these on with some hot glue and making sure that they are secured nicely into place. And then what this is going to do is kind of give me a back form that's straight that I'm going to be able to anchor to his legs. And you'll see in a minute, so just stick with me. So again, just putting up the stick, marking it, taking it back out, making my cuts, figuring out the distance and where I want to put each stick so that I felt like the ball was structurally sound, so to speak. So cut and glue, measure, cut and glue. That's kind of what this whole section's going to be about. I know this is kind of boring, but as you can see, it really did give it a lot of structure. So I held it up to the legs to make sure it was going to work, and I thought it would work just fine. So I thought what I would do now is down at the bottom, I'm going to make a pocket. So I'm going to build up some layers because basically I'm going to make a pocket that is going to set over my dowel rods of the legs that will slide onto the legs, and you'll see in just a second. So what I'm doing right now is just layering sticks upward, giving it some height so that I can create that ledge. On the back side, I put on his little leggings, cut them down over the dowels so that when I glue the sticks on, that he'll have his pants on. So you can see right now I'm measuring how long I think my piece needs to be, and it really only needs to be about an inch wider on both sides than the leg span of his feet. And so I'm gluing this piece on, again, layering up the excess pieces, and I just used some scrap that I had already cut off so that I am making that taller. Now we're going to add on a piece that will go upward in just a second. You can see I'm kind of building it up and cutting that again so that we can glue it. Okay, now I'm testing it out one more time. I drop some hot glue in there. I push it really well. I want it to adhere very, very well. I do not want this part to move. So I am going along all the seams, giving it a good coat of hot glue, making sure it's stuck down really nicely. And we're going to let that dry and adding to the top. So we are sealing that piece in really good. Then I go over all my other seams, kind of sealing them all together, welding them together, so to speak, because I do not want them to pull apart because, like I said, he's going to be standing up. So now I was just testing to see if we were ready to put the legs on. And I think we are. See how it lays on that and kind of made a ledge? That's what you're going for. And then you're sandwiching in those dowel rods between the ledge that we made and this stick that I was just measuring. So I was just checking his leg fabric to make sure it was where I want it to be. So after I get the legs glued on, he'll look good. Marked where I want the legs to go, hot glued those babies on there, and I'm just holding it so it dries for just a minute. We do not want those legs unstable. That's his whole structure. So you can see I applied a good layer of hot glue to that. So now we're going to put a piece of fabric over that hot glue. I probably didn't have to do that, but I added that and hot glued that fabric on because I did not want that to move at all in case it was to flex for any reason in the wind, I wanted it to be very strong. So I added that step. You probably wouldn't have to if you don't want to. So let's put the next piece on, and that will be the board that will, or stick that will basically sandwich that in so that that stays nice and secure. So again, I just measured it, cut it, and I am going to hot glue it on just like we did with the others. So making sure I had glue so it attaches to the legs where the boards were. And then I'm going to seal it in at the seams just like I did a while ago. Making sure there's a lot of hot glue on those dowels. And that's really it. I know it seems like it was a lot of steps on this piece, but this is really just kind of rebuilding that structure so it's more solid. And then I glued his leggings down to his fur on his boots. So I went around each boot, just pulled his legging down and glued it to the boot so that it wouldn't move and you wouldn't see his dowels for any reason, and it would look like it was one solid piece. We wouldn't want him to be showing his skinny little wooden gnome legs. So let's go on and add some fur. I'm going to add to the top of it. He did already have fur. I added an existing layer of fur. I thought that would be really, really cute to put around the bottom of his legs too. You'll see in the final picture. His hat looked like it was missing some green, so I just threw together a cute little bow, and I'm going to glue that on top of his head so that he has a cute little ribbon, which brings my green color up to the top as well, and just hot glue that in place also. It just looked like it needed something. So now you're going to see I'm going to add that fur that I was just telling you guys about. Glue all the way around. Again, that's that crochet yarn that looks like fur. I did one layer all the way around it and just hot glued it onto the top of both legs. That kind of helps cover the seam or any hot glue seepage you might have had when you glued his pants down. And repeat it on the second leg. We're almost there, guys. I know it's a long video, but I just think he turned out so adorable, and I am super excited to share this build with you guys, and I hope you love him. And that's it. And here we have it, the cutest little standing Dollar Tree gnome. I did paint one of the Dollar Tree Merry Christmas wooden signs, painted it in green, strung it around his neck with a little rope so it looked like it's hanging on him. And I just think he is toots adorable. So I hope you do too. So go out and buy your Dollar Tree ornaments and have fun, y'all. And be sure to follow my page. Bye.